Why is it that the organization with the most front office job stability is oftentimes the least aggressive with regard to team building and just how they go about winning? Think about that question for a second, and let me make this statement. This better be the most aggressive offseason in Cowboys franchise history.
Most aggressive offseason in Cowboys franchise history.
But what exactly does that mean, Lando? You have a lame duck coach, an expensive quarterback, a couple different Hall of Famers that could be walking away from the game at any moment, and you've got a fluid defensive coordinator situation. If you're going for it all one more time with this current roster, the coaching staff included, then you better be going for it all financially as well. To do that, you first have to make your expensive quarterback less expensive. And to achieve that, you of course have to either extend him or, and yes, I said or, convert some of that salary into the 2 void years that were tacked on at the end of his contract that he signed in 2021. Michael Gelkin's article right here has everything you need to know about that. And don't listen to anyone who suggests to you that the Cowboys can't afford certain players. Like I always say, the salary cap in the future is absolutely real, but the salary cap in the present is absolutely not. There's always enough room for right now. If any of you, for any reason, are still confused by that, just let me know in the comments and I'll do the best that I can to clear that up. Back to the lame duck coach for a second. And I understand it's a hot topic right now. All I can say is this. If the lame duck coach has the same mentality that oftentimes the lame duck player does, then you could very easily be fine there. Fantasy football fans know this. In a vacuum, in your fantasy drafts, if you've got 2 players that you value similarly, favor the guy in a contract year. Extra motivation. As for Dan Quinn, many of you have been asking. Yes, I would love Mike Vrabel in the event that DQ leaves, because I think he instantly solves the physicality, the toughness, and the discipline problems that this team has suffered from. Instantly. But let me tell you why that probably won't happen, even if DQ does leave. This organization loves to hire from within, okay? And they did break tendency a little bit last year, which we're going to talk about in a second. But it's not just swapping coaches, okay? This front office is comfortable. When you swap coaches, you are oftentimes swapping schemes. You're swapping the roles for each specific player within that scheme. And then you're also swapping the entire talent evaluation and talent acquisition philosophy. That front office very quickly becomes very uncomfortable, and they don't like that. Which brings me to Jerry Jones, who does catch a lot of criticism. But I want to be fair to him because, as you guys will hear me say very often, it's not Jerry Jones that's making these decisions. It's Stephen Jones and it's Will McClay. Jerry just either gives the red light or the green light. But, and this is where it gets kind of weird, as most vintage Cowboys fans will tell you, and even Jerry Jones said it himself, that in 1995, he made a deal with God and he asked him to give him 1 more Super Bowl. And if he did, then he would never ask for anything ever again. But what if that proverbial deal was with a separate entity? Once again, this is the vintage fan sentiment that is often echoed. As long as Jerry Jones is around, the Cowboys will never win a Super Bowl again. It's not my place to speculate, but it is at the very least worth acknowledging. So, deep breath, and walk with me for a second. I'm not a conspiracy guy. When other people in this industry that I really respect begin to talk, I start paying attention. And as you guys know, it's always my number 1 goal to bring as much truth to as many of the real fans that deserve to hear it. So first we're going to listen to Law Nation, and then we're going to discuss some of the other issues that we can prove. Let's talk about where the Cowboys go from here.
Dez Bryant, man, he broke it down just like this, and we heard stories of Terrell Owens saying the same thing, Cole Beasley saying the same thing, and now we're hearing my guy Dez Bryant saying the same thing. And it's quite strange to me that we may have seen the same thing in this past playoff game, because no way possible Dez is telling the lie right here, right? Read between the lines. It's a game within a game that Dak to CeeDee Lamb was just that terrible. Listen to this video.
We about to get ready to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They really sorry this time. You know, this is they always been sorry. We supposed to wipe them out, right? So we finna lose to them. I don't touch the ball in the first quarter. That's how I knew JG had something against me. I don't touch the ball in the first quarter. They run me on these bullshit ass routes, right? So I run a drag across the field. I'm running across the field doing Romo like this. Give me the ball. I'm finna take this and scope. He threw me the ball. I run behind the line of scrimmage. House call. Hit him with the not to the fans, just to the organization. You're going to pay me my money.
Pay attention to that part right there.
Look, check this
Pay
out.
attention to that part.
This all happening in the second quarter. So, shit, we get the ball again. Romo called a play. I supposed to have a stop route. I said, hey, if he press, I'm going vertical. I'm telling you that right now. I'm not running no stop route. Romo trying to tell me to run a stop route. I ain't running. I'm telling you I'm not running this stop route if he pressed me. Guess what he do? Mr. Badass wanted to press me. Grabbed him by the arm, yanked him down. Romo then threw it to me. I'm talking about him running back in the end zone, got him stiff arming him like this right here. Guess what I do? Flick the ball back. Everybody, the organization, JG, they all knew who that was for. They knew who that shit was for. I ain't see that ball no more after that.
While it may be funny,
that ball no
but that
more
is a system of control. Why not have your playmaker to continue to make plays? But you worried about the money. Like I said, the Cowboys are a political team, political Cowboys, and the coaching comes from above. As above, so below. They need a coach that they can control. The evidence right in your face.
Essentially, what this video is suggesting is that the Joneses are willing to sabotage team success in an attempt to minimize salary cap damage from their most talented players and prospective free agents. That accusation is absolutely insane. But Law Nation, y'all, is not out here chasing clicks. Okay, that's the first thing you got to know. He's looking for the truth the same way I am.
It was the week Amari Cooper got there. And Sanjay Lau was one of my favorite receiver coaches ever. Really good coach, knows what he's doing, right? He comes in there, and he told me straight up, he was like, hey, I'm just letting you know the big man, Jerry and Steven, are up there pushing to get Amari the rock this game. So I'm just letting you know. So I don't want y'all to get frustrated. Be ready for it. And I'm like, all right, cool. In that game, it was versus the Tennessee Titans. We forced the ball to him a ton. Dak threw picks forcing to him. And, so I know they do it. So he's not lying about that.
Not only did Dez Bryant say it, Cole Beasley said it, and I think T.O. said it too. And of course, like I said, man, I have to focus on the things that I can actually see and study and verify. But if those accusations are even remotely accurate, then the Country Club Cowboys narrative that we talked about in this video is real. And the Cowboys issues go well beyond the X's and the O's and the Jimmys and the Joes. A lot of folks seem to be expressing the sentiment that the sky is actually falling. All right, but that's why we're here to talk this through and figure out what's real, what's not. It's a very emotional situation considering the amount of talent that you had, the expectation to win, and then the manner in which you fell flat on your face. People are going to start talking, including family members of star players. Not the least of which, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, which realistically speaking are your three best. I'm going to be truthful with y'all. Like I said, that's always the goal here. Okay, my first instinct when I saw CeeDee's mom's comments in particular was that that's coming from somewhere. Okay, if she feels that way, then there's a strong chance that CeeDee is probably feeding some of that to her. All right, that was my first instinct. But then I think about it a little bit deeper and I'm like, well, even if that is true, that wouldn't make much sense either, considering CeeDee just set Cowboys records, had a career year for himself, and led the entire NFL in targets. Is now widely regarded as one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL, thanks to not only his prowess, but the prowess of his quarterback as well. Chicken or the egg type deal. One of those doesn't occur without the other. Beyond that, I also hate it too for the players specifically that they actually have to deal with this stuff. Not only are they usually at the forefront of unfair criticism from national media all the time, but then they have family members adding insult to injury and just making their entire situation that much more difficult. That frustrates me as a former athlete who can imagine having to be put into those situations that they're in. Like the family dynamic on top of just representing the star, which is a lot more than just being an athlete. But once again, I understand CeeDee's mom, in the heat of the moment, those comments were made during the middle of the game. Okay. So her natural instinct, her human instinct is to protect her own flesh and blood. Totally understand that. Right, especially when it seems like, the cameras, the broadcast team is focusing on CeeDee Lamb having to be talked to by Mike McCarthy in the first quarter and, less than ideal body language from your star player. So there may be a spotlight fair or unfair, thrust upon him, she's going to react in an effort to protect her son. I get that. Okay. So my advice to all of us as fans would be to just stop talking about it. And I realize that's pot calling the kettle black here, considering I'm having this discussion, but just let the dust settle a little bit. I think the athletes will handle adversity accordingly. Figure out how to get on the same page without having us constantly chirping at them about their family dynamic. I think we're making this to be a little bit bigger of a deal than it actually should be. Now let's talk about the decision to bring back Mike McCarthy. A lot of you are asking for my opinion on that. Was it the right move? I'm actually ashamed to say that I'm kind of indifferent on it. Can I say that it was the best thing for the organization and the offense and the quarterback if we know for a fact that no other options were considered? No, I can't. But I can confidently say that it is the path of least resistance. Okay? This front office is comfortable. When you swap coaches, you are oftentimes swapping schemes. You're swapping the roles for each specific player within that scheme. And then you're also swapping the entire talent evaluation and talent acquisition philosophy. And once again, why is it that the organization with the most front office job stability is oftentimes the least aggressive with regard to team building and just how they go about winning? Why is it? Comfort. When you change coaches, you change philosophies, and when you change philosophy, you have to disregard everything that got you to the point to where you currently are. Your entire approach to talent evaluation, talent acquisition, the way that you manage your salary cap, and the way that you approach free agency.
I'm not defending Jerry Jones here. I'm really not. But I believe that he's handed the reins to Steven and to Will. I don't think that Will and Steven necessarily want change. I don't think they've got things rolling the right way when it comes to drafting, obtaining personnel. They're not questioned. They're not going to be questioned by a Bill Belichick. They're not going to be questioned by a Mike Vrabel. And I think that Steven and Will are to a point where the continuity to them is super important. You know, they don't want to roll in here and have to wow, we got to change. We don't have the personnel. We're going to have to do exactly what we did with Parcells. It's continuity to them. They don't have to change everything, and they don't have to fight it with Mike. If you're going out there and getting one of those coaches you're talking about, and they're two great candidates, you're absolutely right. But that means change. And that means we have to change the way that we're operating here.
Everything is now under a microscope. You have to be honest with yourself as an organization. Am I willing to go through some of those bumps and bruises to get me over that hump? The Shanahan hump that the Cowboys can't seem to get over. Which is why I raised the question in the last video. Perhaps you want to beat Kyle Shanahan or his understudies beneath the Shanahan tree. Then maybe you should hire somebody to help you out from within it. That Shanahan tree, those bunch formations that LaFleur and everybody else in it regularly deploys, force DQ out of his single high man coverage stuff. Encourage you to not play man coverage because of the traffic, right? It's difficult to navigate through when everything is tight and condensed. There's a lot of stuff happening. Got misdirection things and traffic, okay? They cause chaos. It's designed that way for a reason. Creates a lot of traffic, creates a lot of chaos, and it's very difficult to handle all the misdirection and the counter to navigate through and stick with your man. And they're going to exploit you with all the things and the principles that we've been wanting to see more of from Mike McCarthy. Just like Jerry Jones said, I also asked the question, how is he going to try and sell it? Because I had a feeling that Mike McCarthy was coming back. And sure enough, here he is. Once again, I don't necessarily hate it, but it can't be the best decision for you if you didn't at the very least consider all the other options. Like I said, Bobby Slowick comes to mind. To that point, that about the change of philosophy, okay, it goes back to the beginning of this 2023 season, last offseason, where I actually found a lot of hope and thought that philosophical change was finally coming.
And this is where I have a little bit of hope. I'm sensing a little bit of desperation by the Joneses allowing Mike McCarthy the autonomy to let Kellen Moore go.
Philosophically, as an organization, we did see them break a little bit of tendency, right? Let McCarthy fire their golden boy, Kellen Moore. Hire actually his own coaches, his offensive coordinator and his staff to go along with it. And then taking draft capital, which they hate doing since Stephen Jones has been steering the ship, and trading for veteran players, older guys, which is a signal to the Cowboys fans that, hey, we are trying to go for this thing here. We are all in. Okay. But they better take that and turn it up tenfold if they have any chance of actually running it back and getting somewhere this time. And then part of that tenfold is Mike McCarthy himself figuring out a way to not break tendency as an offense as well, and inexplicably go away from the things that make your offense function at a high level, number one in the NFL, when it absolutely matters most. Okay, either he figures that out or they make themselves uncomfortable and go hire somebody as an analyst or an understudy who can. Maybe somebody from the Shanahan tree. So, you guys may be tired of hearing me ask questions, so let me make this statement. The offense was failed by the X's and the O's. The defense was failed by the Jimmies and the Joes.
I think that this coaching staff leaned too much on Jimmys and Joes. This coaching staff leaned on their dudes when they should have been leaning on scheme and how we're going to do things and how can we make things easy. So when we're in the playoffs and Dak Prescott is forcing slants into cover 2, he's forcing outs into cover 3, he's forcing deep balls into cover 4, the first thing that they teach you in football school not to do. I just think that sometimes this coaching staff gets a little sleepy, and I don't think they move with enough urgency in scheming things up. And you should lean on players doing their job, Brian. Until I watch Detroit. I watched Detroit Lions, just getting ready for Cowboys versus Lions. They probably got one of the best offensive lines in the league. And you should lean on players doing their job, Brian. Until I watch Detroit. I watched Detroit Lions, just getting ready for Cowboys versus Lions. They probably got one of the best offensive lines in the league, but they don't lean on Jimmys and Joes. They do a lot of scheme stuff in the run game to make stuff work. If their center can't get to the front side linebacker, they'll just say, hey, leave the one tech alone. This front side linebacker block is more important than the backside scoop on this one tech type of situation, right? And they do things to help their guys along. I don't think the Cowboys did enough in their scheme to make it easier for the Joes to do their jobs.
3 bullet points, just like I did once again for recapping the game on Talking Packers.
What happened to Dallas?
I can pretty much sum it up to you in 3 bullet points. First one is something that Cowboys fans tracked all year long, especially me and my partner on PSF. Their inability to, I guess, punish teams that elect to play the too high shell, light boxes. We couldn't exploit you and make you pay for making that decision, right? That's kind of like one of the fundamental elements of football. If you see a too high shell, right, you should be able to run into that almost every single time. That was the focal point of my preview heading into this game. The scary thing about the Cowboys is that their offense, led by their MVP caliber quarterback, was one of the best in the league all year long. And that was without ever fully figuring out how to effectively run the football. Real quick, the other 2 bullet points were we couldn't stop the run, right? And that was actually the second bullet point in my preview after the Cowboys, being able to get things going in the run game was to be able to stop yours. And the reason I said that was because the amount of respect that I have watching Aaron Jones, but I understand that vision is his superpower, right? With that and the misdirection and the condensed formations that Green Bay, the Shanahan tree, really, and particularly Matt LaFleur as well, in this instance here, would give this team problems, as the Cowboys are absolutely decimated and poorly constructed and thin in the middle of their defense. The defensive tackle spots and then the second level directly behind that. And that's a huge discussion that we may be here for an hour, just me explaining the tug of war that Cowboys fans amongst themselves were having in regards to the Micah Parsons debate, whether he should be fully entrenched full-time at the edge position as opposed to kind of mixing up and spelling the off-ball spot for a team that was decimated at the position. Just ask Buffalo about that. You tell me how effective that Micah was that day, strictly at edge. He can still rush the quarterback from the middle of the field as well, have the best of both worlds. And he's actually this season been most effective doing so from the middle. And just watch this play right here. Micah, they can still find ways to scheme around him if he's on the line of scrimmage to one side, the way that he normally is. He's an elite pursuer of the ball carrier from the second level. He's an elite pass rusher. But he's not elite at all as a run defender from the edge. So if you stick him at edge, you're eliminating one of Micah's superpowers. Whereas if you put him in the middle, he's inevitable. Leighton Vander Esch went down, did third-round draft pick DeMarvion Overshown. He tore his ACL, unfortunately, before the season even began. The Cowboys ultimately were left with, in this matchup, we're going to just focus on the autopsy of the Green Bay game. The Cowboys had a 205-pound safety playing linebacker against you guys, which I was very fearful of because of the vision and the discipline required in terms of gap integrity, right? That's very important to stopping the run. And then the other guy, Damone Clark, who, once again, mad respect to him for the effort. This is a guy that had spinal fusion surgery back in 2022, probably a day 2 pick before his injury. He failed a physical, had a spinal issue. And so fast forward 8 months, fresh off of spinal fusion surgery. He's one of your starting linebackers. So you've got undrafted free agent safety Marquise Bell playing linebacker. And then you've got Damone Clark, who is still essentially a rookie because he only played 8 games on his rookie season. The third thing, this is actually the most important. If bullet point number 3 occurs, and it significantly reduces the need for the previous 2 bullet points. The Cowboys broke tendency offensively. They went away from what works. And if I'm trying to be concise and simple here, it's motion.
How many times did you watch film and you go, boy, every time they did pre-snap motion, things just happen to work out. But when we get into big games, we just don't do it.
This offense, like most good modern offenses, once again, the Shanahan tree. And I guess the newest version of that would be the Bobby Slowick team down in Houston. So yeah, we broke tendency. We stuck to basically the shotgun run game with Tony Pollard next to Dak in the gun, and it was just simply like an inside zone scheme. That was like their default run play when they just needed to try to get a couple yards. And they lacked explosivity there in that department. And, that's not really Tony's skill set either. Once again, all this stuff is detailed in a more creative way on my YouTube channel. So those 3 bullet points, man, the Cowboys broke tendency, though, being essentially the biggest and most critical straw that broke the camel's back. 2 non-linebackers essentially playing linebacker. You can't run the football. And then the third thing is you inexplicably break tendency. You go away from the modern elements of offense that have already proven to give not only you, but the Shanahan tree that you can't beat, tons of success. Why does it go away? Answer that question for me. Now, you got whooped by the Packers, largely because of exactly what we just talked about. Okay, if you were paying attention all season long, you weren't surprised. Those were the things that bit us in the ass. Like my buddy Steven Ngati from Fanatic Perspective and I spoke about for over an hour on the phone the other day. Man, we should have been recording that phone call and putting that on YouTube. Just the thought-provoking analysis is seemingly endless when I have conversations with him. That's why I respect him so much. We should have known from the moment the opening coin toss happened. The Packers won it and elected to receive instead of defer. It's something that only 12% of teams that win the opening coin toss do in the postseason. 12% of the time, the team that wins the toss chooses to receive as opposed to deferring to the second half. Matt LaFleur was so confident. Like, we should have known what we were in for right then and there. You got a first-year starter quarterback in Jordan Love, the youngest team in the NFL, on the road in a hostile environment against the Dallas Cowboys, who had won 16 consecutive games in that building. And you're an overwhelming underdog, a 7-point dog, which is a lot of points in a playoff game. There's a lot of points in the NFL in general, but much less a playoff game. And you just go march right down the field. And then the team that was supposed to win, they folded at the first sign of adversity. So not only did the X's and the O's and the Jimmies and the Joes get them beat, they beat themselves right here. So let's close with this and talk about where we actually go from here. First and foremost, you got to stick with the things that help your quarterback play MVP caliber quarterback. You can't just break tendency. Secondly, you got to be able to handle adversity a little bit better. That, to me, starts with the mentality of the coaching staff instilling that in them. And like I detailed in the last video, you got to hammer home the importance of the intangible traits of physicality and toughness. The country club Cowboys narrative can't continue to play itself out when you go against teams who are willing to be more physical than you. And then the last 2 are you got to be able to run the football, and you damn sure better be able to stop it. Because if you can't do those 2 things, then it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for you. I promise you that. I think, personally, my opinion, is that the Cowboys need a whole lot less finesse and a whole lot more FU. And lastly, I'll end this the same way that I started it. This better be the most aggressive offseason in franchise history. Don't forget to like this video if you want to keep seeing more of them like it. Talk to you guys soon.